for the Dobson Board of Trustees for Tuesday, October 26, 2021. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Officially open. I just want everyone to be aware that two of our trustees are appearing virtually. You can see them on the screen. That's Deputy Mayor Cassell and Trustee Taylor. They are appearing virtually. The instructions for how the public can appear virtually is on our website and attached to the agenda. And it explains how you could watch it via Zoom and via YouTube. So can we rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is a presentation regarding an application for 417 Broadway, which is Sacred Heart Church. Is there someone here from the applicant?
Yes.
Come up to the microphone.
We have our planner on the line too.
Okay. No. Before you start, you can just tell us your name, your company you're with.
I'm Anthony Zano. I'm here to assist Lincoln Hills, which is the contractor in the church, in getting the approvals. Do some rehabilitation to the parking lot, some landscaping, and some lighting. Bear with me while I share. I have a couple going on old school, so I'll go high tech, so everything that's there. It's better on the screen, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, so essentially what we're looking to do here is to resurface the existing parking lot, to configure it to accommodate and maximize the number of parking spaces that allows for adequate backup. We have 20, right now it's kind of just evolved over time. We're parking on the grass. It's not really organized. A typical parking lot is a 24-foot travel lane with two 18-foot stalls on each side. So in this plan, I've demonstrated looking to organize the lot to achieve maximum parking spaces. While it's not a heck of a lot, at least it works and functions. But in doing so, we are actually increasing the amount of impervious pavement. I do have Mike McGarvey, the engineer's report for the drainage calculations required for the underground context, which I have a copy here, but I can get it, I don't have to get it to Ed, so we'll take care of that. And other than that, the entire site on the Broadway side, Rancho Bow Avenue, remain the same, other than we're going to replace the curb cut that's at that on Rancho Bow, to make it a 7-inch thick concrete and align it properly with the center line of the driveway. We'll be doing some landscaping with some native material and some perennials around. There's some hydrangeas in there, so some of them are non-native, but majority of the plant material is native. And we're going to be doing some screening along the edge and some canopy trees. In doing this project, there's an existing large poplar that's kind of, it's in a way of organizing this lot. It's not in the greatest health, so that one tree will come down, and then we will be planting 5 October glory, so it's a native red maple. We also have a red bud and some evergreen American holly and some shrubs. We also are doing some lighting for the LED. They're down, so it's Dark Skies of America compliant. It's essentially a shoebox type of unit. It's really not. It's really more of a contemporary, but it's a simple fixture on a pole. Nothing crazy, but it's just to provide some lighting to the parking lot, so that there's also some lighting on the building. It just will enhance and provide a little more safety. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
There was a question about the lighting. So I don't know, have we being the building department, have they looked at the lighting? Have they discussed it with
We
you?
did submit the lighting as a package, but when I guess we're going back, the planning board,
Right.
I will get this information back to Ed. It did show the lighting photometrics, but that was developed by the lighting company, not me. And then shows the fixture, the pole, light, LEDs, the whole spec on it. So that was provided for the building department. And we can obviously get that to him again if he still needs it.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, could you just remember to advise the members of the public that they have to raise their hand if they have a question, but this isn't a public
Yeah,
hearing, and this
right.
is just for purposes of the referrals to the planning board and the county planning, and we have our planners here as well if there are questions.
So how many spots does it create?
It's 20. Hang on. $23.
Does that actually like increase the number of cars that
Well,
compared to what parks now?
technically, what's really there, I mean, if you want to look at a standard, you need a 20-foot wide travel lane and 18. I don't even think they have 6 legal spaces, but they park on the area that I show hatched there. That's really gravel and dirt. They're using this parking lot almost the way I've drawn it.
Okay.
But it's not on pavement, it's not organized, so you get, somebody might be parking on 2 lanes, so it's, when you stripe a parking lot, you'll get the maximum amount of spaces. If you leave people to park, they're late for church, they're gonna park, I'm sure they park all the way headed and along the building. At Christmas, I can't even imagine what this place is like. We're doing the best we can without really going, the additional lawn, I was asking, we get more spaces? And my answer was no, because you still need 24 feet of a travel lane, and what am I gonna get? 4 more spaces by removing all the landscaping in the front? Doesn't make sense. This is it increases the organized parking spaces and without impacting the rest of the site.
Does the curb cut change the number of spots on Rochambeau that you can park at now?
I think
That's
they're
the same.
parking on street during, like I guess Sunday, they really must. There's no public work on both sides, and someone from the church, I'm
Okay.
sure they park everywhere when they need to.
Oh, no, I just meant if with the curb cuts taking away any of the parking that's existing on the street now.
Well, the curb cut is there that's existing, so we're not really taking away the existing. You're always able to get into the parking on the street, because of where the alignment's going. We want a new drop curb with 7-inch concrete, so it's stable, and it's the improvements, we're looking to make these improvements that'll last for a long time.
Mayor, if I may, Don Mara, I'm trustee of the church. One thing I wanted to say is that parking, of course, improving the parking is wonderful. But the most important thing is the safety of people getting out of their car and walking into church. It's a disaster right now as far as potholes, and as Anthony said, loose areas along the grass and so forth. The lighting would be tremendous. So it's not just a place to put cars more neatly, but it's going to make it a lot more safer for people who use a lot. Father Chris was going to be here tonight, he couldn't make it, but he wanted me to express that point to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is the planner available? Wanna-
Hello.
Hi, Valerie.
Valerie, do you have any comments or clarification that you want to share at this time?
No, except that this application is probably ready to be referred to the planning board. And in terms of seeker, it's a type 2 action, so it doesn't require you to declare yourself lead agency, nor does it require additional environmental review.
Okay.
We had prepared a resolution, Valerie and I had worked on a resolution together for your last meeting, as the public hearing had been opened at your last meeting. So if you have no comments to actually forward to the planning board necessarily, and it's ready, then you have a resolution.
Okay.
Just to clarify, if I could, one thing that Lori Lee, you had said earlier, I just want to make clear to the public that a referral to the planning board will allow for public comment at the planning board and then public comment at subsequent meetings. So while this isn't a forum for public comment, certainly the board could accept emails that have ideas or suggestions, but there'll be opportunities to comment at further public meetings. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lori Lee.
That is correct. The planning board will conduct a public hearing. They'll schedule one. This will be on the agenda. They'll schedule one, open it, and continue to review this, making it available for public comment. And then when it returns to you here at the Board of Trustees, you'll also conduct a public hearing for any final comments.
So just so our next step, so moves us to the planning board. I understand the next meeting is in November, but we missed the deadline, which was the 14th. So you would be referred, you would make application to the planning board for the December meeting. For that, just so the church, so I want them to more for their knowledge, time, and obviously when it's done, but I'm kind of explaining it to them. So we're going to go back, we go to planning board, and then we come back. Will that be a one meeting planning board, or we don't know until the comments, maybe two, and then we come back to the board of trustees?
Correct.
So,
We don't know how many meetings.
Yeah.
okay.
Right, typically,
Yeah, usually it's on for pre-submission first, and then they'll set a date for the public hearing, and then it might be one night. It depends on the engineer's review, the consultant's review. That's why the planning board, they need all of the substantive memos in place before that they can set a public hearing.
And Valerie, we need to submit formal application.
that's correct.
We could submit that to the planning board.
Correct.
Okay, so Valerie, I'll put them on.
Actually, it'll go through the building department, yeah.
Okay. All right, then.
But you're welcome to call me and if you have any questions.
Okay, so let's take action on it now. So I know we have a resolution for it. So let's move to, is there a motion to, and I'm going to read this just very briefly, to be resolved that as an essential precondition to further review of the proposed project, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby directs that the project be referred for comment and recommendation to the Dobbs Ferry Planning Board as required by the zoning code and referred to the Westchester County Planning Board in accordance with the general municipal law based on the proximity of the subject property to Broadway Route 9. Is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? We can't see. Could you take that down off the screen for? Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay. All in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously, so it's done.
We have to come back anyway.
Yes, we'll see you in about, well, I'm not going to say.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll take with the snow.
The next item is a presentation on the Main Street sidewalk improvements by George Palmer. I'm assuming he's very virtually.
I'm here.
So if I can just comment for the board and for the public before George begins. The village, I think, went out for bid once before on Main Street improvements. And at that time did not go forward with the project. I think it's the COVID-related issues. In the meanwhile, some additional funds were identified and were able to be transferred over to the project. So you have a more significant amount of money to deal with, which should cover most of the costs. At this point, because of the length of the grants that have been assigned to this project, we're told must be completed by the end of 2022, or you're going to lose the grant funding. So it's quite important that this process move along and move on to the next step. So George is here. We've had a number of meetings about this. We've met with the tree committee and internally as well, and several meetings to discuss the different options that are before you. I know we've discussed this before, but this is in greater depth. And the time really now, in the best of all possible worlds, if you were going to try to accommodate the grant, the time really is to try to settle on a plan. And if you're ready to move forward, to then move to the process of authorizing the preparation of the bids and really getting everything nailed down so you can fundamentally start this project in early 2022. So you can get it done by the end of the year. So with that, I'll turn it over to George. And George, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. As Richard very clearly summarized, we had several meetings on this project over the last couple months. And yes, at the end of this process, I think we met in March. And we said in in October that we'd revisit it, and here we are. And some of the issues were the restaurants in the project and how they would be impacted, and that was part of the reason for the delay. So with that, I'd like to share my screen. If I can do that. Screen 2. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So this is the Main Street improvement, starts at Cedar, ends at Chestnut. And this is a colored rendition. It shows the trees that are to remain, the trees that are being replaced in the darker green, the trees that were existing that will remain in the lighter green. And we had, as Richard said, we had extensive meetings with the tree consortium about which trees to remain or which ones wouldn't. And in our presentation we forwarded to you, we also gave you some pictures to illustrate some of the issues that we were running into or that we want to address with the project. Photo 1 is the issue of box trucks and loading and unloading and how they impact the trees. You can see the damage to the tree. The tree seems far away, but the box trucks really get kind of close. Photo 2 is an example of the roots that we have to deal with the existing trees. We can't plant a tree right where an existing tree is because there would be too much extensive damage if we tried to tear all those roots out. Photo 3 is the issues that we're having with the low wires with Altice, which is the cable provider in the area. So you can see that they're damaging trees. Photo 4 is out in front of Sam's Restaurant. That's showing one of the treatments that I guess over the years has evolved, and someone has put wood chips in that area to kind of soften the jaggedness when whatever treatment, the mulch or whatever is in there gets washed out. You can see in photo 2, there's no mulch at all because the tree roots take up the entire tree pit. And then we get over to photo 5. This is one of the trees that Wayne Cahilly wanted to save. You can see here there's a buttress root in the background here that's pushing up the sidewalk a good 5-6 inches. And the village has come along and they've trimmed out the sidewalk to soften or reduce the tripping hazard. But this, you can see in this picture that the tree root is actually going towards the wall behind it. If you look at the lines of the stones of the wall, you can actually see the wall starting to be impacted as well. 6, this is out in front of Steve Tilley's office. The tree is pushing up the bricks, the decorative bricks. It's actually creating a back pitch condition where water is starting to go towards the doors. And 7 is the final product. We have the same scoring pattern, not the same brick, but it'll have the same look. Once it's complete, you'll have this look for the entire project. You'll have, instead of the brick pattern, we'll have a stamped concrete. And then one of the cost-saving measures that came up, and it's mentioned in the memorandum, is what was used in Bronxville, which was a rubber matting surface. Later in this presentation, we'll get into the numbers and the cost, but this rubber matting surface for the entire project is $20,000. The grates and whatnot are in the $100,000. So there's an $80,000 difference in savings, and the landscape architect was accepting of this solution to protecting the trees, and it seems like a reasonable solution to an issue that the village has. And then actually, I'm sorry, I missed the picture, photo 8. This is showing the low wires that Altice has, and over time, you started out as very small wires, and you can see in this picture that you keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've been in conversations with Altice on possibly undergrounding them, but it's going to take some time. to have them come back to us, but the conversation's being had. And we'll keep everyone posted on the progress that we make with them. And then we have some project details and we have the cost. As Richard mentioned a minute ago, you got more money from the DOT. You got $550,000. To max out your contribution, you need to put in $137,500. The total project cost is $687,500. With a number of modifications to the bid. If you wanted to put in, say, the structural soil and the rubber matting, you'd be in that 687,000 range. And you'd max out your amount of money and what you have to contribute without going too far over the total cost. And that's it for now. The memo that Richard forwarded out talked about some other issues, low carbon concrete. We did another project and the state was accepting of it. We tried to do the glasscrete. We still haven't come to a resolution with the, well, not a resolution, a product that concrete manufacturers will, transit mix companies will produce and send to us for this project. But we do have another product. It's a slag mix. DOT will accept it. It is the current form of low carbon concrete that we're using in Hastings. Until we get that glass product into production, that's what we have for low carbon concrete. And that's we'll have an ADA compliant product. The DOT has reviewed it. That's going to upgrade it to modern day standards. One of the issues that Richard mentioned earlier was schedule. And that was in the beginning of the memo, which is important. So we have the projected November bid date, identify the contractors in December, start the project in February, project duration 6 months, the grant ends in December. So we should be on time for getting all the money if we hold to that schedule. And that's what all I have for now. Is there any questions?
George, this is Donna. I have a question. At one point, we were talking about bump outs at the crossings, at the crosswalks. Are they still being considered or not?
So we looked at them back in 2019. And the issue that we had with the bump outs, and I know Patty Steinschneider looked at them as well with the traffic committee. The issue is that we have buses and box trucks coming down these hills and going up them. And the problem is when you put those bump outs in, vehicles start going into the other travel lane. And we can't have buses and trucks going into the other travel lane.
George,
hard to hear
George, we're not really hearing you that clearly. I don't know if maybe you're too close to the microphone or not close enough, or what do you think?
But our air just turned on, so it's worse now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's worse.
Worse.
Talk.
Hello?
No.
No? I just upped the mic. Is that better?
Well, everybody else says they hear it clearly on Zoom, but we don't hear it.
Can we turn it up in here? Oh, okay.
Go ahead, try again, George.
Hello? So we looked at the bump outs on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead and speak loudly.
Okay, so we looked at the bump outs on Elm Street and on Oak coming down. And we looked at the turning maneuvers for buses and trucks. And buses and trucks seem to have a problem with going into the other lane when you put those bump outs in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And George, I know that we had a question about burying the lines, I mean, that would be, take this project to a whole nother level. Is that correct?
Yes, and what, well, there's two entities or three entities to deal with. So we reached out to Verizon. Verizon said, we don't have very many wires here. Everything's fed from a different direction or whatnot, from the back of the property or from another street. So it's Altice and Con Ed. Con Ed, if you tried to put the electric underground, that would be a massive undertaking. You need transformers underground, you need large wires, large pull box. It's a massive operation. But for Altice, it's a little bit less complicated, a little less costly. So they have smaller boxes, smaller cables, and it's more feasible to put in a conduit system, even if you didn't pull the wire today or tomorrow or during the project, you can come back and reach out to each individual homeowner or property owner and connect later on. So it's possible, but it's still in the works. So, and then there's a cost that comes along with that. So we're in conversation with Altice, and we'll
We
keep
would
everybody.
really want that.
Yeah. we'd like
We
to
would
know-
really want that.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, could you give us an order of magnitude of cost for both of those items, just given the linear footage?
So
Yeah, are we talking about a few $100,000? Are we talking about what?
yeah, so I'm just using numbers, just thinking of the conduits and whatnot. If we're just talking about putting an empty conduit under the sidewalk, we're in the 100,000 range for Altice, for the cable. When we're talking about wires for Con Ed, we're talking $1 million. So you have transformers, basically for a transformer, you have a 10 by 8 by 12 foot deep box under the roadway. It's a massive undertaking, and it's something.
And how many of those would we need? I mean, you're talking about a vault. Does it need air circulation? Is that a graded vault, or is it just a concrete vault with? And then how many of those would you need? 1, 5? What are we
Yeah,
talking?
so reaching out to Con Ed, that hasn't been fleshed out. So since it's such a high price tag, people usually find out that Con Ed doesn't want to go through that exercise and say, okay, to put that underground is X million dollars. You'd have to start that's a project like in itself to try to put that underground. And that kind of wiring, that might have to go into the basement or somewhere else. And it's a lot more complicated. So to answer your question, I don't know how many 5 transformers or 4 or 3, that would have to be detailed out with Con Ed. And we've reached out to them probably 5 or 6 times every quarter, every 2-3 months. We reach out to them and say, is there any progress, any thoughts on, because they have the utility poles out here that are all metal. We say, are you guys going to change those out? And they haven't reached back to us and given us any kind of real answers. So they haven't been very responsive to us. So, but that's where we're at with Con Ed.
George, would there also be a cost for each of the building owners to connect to the new wires? Or is that included in the numbers that you're giving us?
So that 100,000, interestingly, I met with the field tech out there, and basically it's a conduit. It comes up, it's a stub to the edge of the building. Basically a 4-inch capped pipe, it gets capped there and a wire goes in there. And they didn't indicate at the time that there's any kind of cost to them, because basically the wire's already there, just transferring it from aerial up overhead to a conduit underground. So there's not a lot of work to that. It's basically cut, splice, and connect. So it's not, I can't imagine there'd be a huge cost to that.
But for Con Ed,
But for Con Ed, that's a big process. That's, again, you're talking $100,000 for a cable, and you're talking $1 million for Con Ed or more. So usually when communities go through this, they get a separate grant for undergrounding. They have scenic view preservation grants, and they're hard to come by. The DEC, I think, had them about 10 years ago, and only a few places I know of went through the process. And it stalled traffic. It did everything under the sun. Much more complicated. It's just as complicated as the sidewalk project, and then some.
There have been several questions that have come through the chat.
Yeah, but the presentation, so technically.
I have a few actually that are, can I ask mine first?
Go.
Mr. Palmer, you were on a phone call or some kind of Zoom call some time ago with me and a number of other people, and we looked at the ground glass pozzolan concrete mix. There was some forthcoming ASTM certification and some questions about the DOT acceptance of that mix. I see you have in a slag mix, and I'm just curious if you, I never followed up on that. I was kind of hoping that the certifications would, would take place and that this was a thing that was feasible. And I'm just curious if that was something you entertained. And if so, if it didn't work out, why, or are we close to it? Could we use that in 6 months when we're doing the work because it's forthcoming or?
Okay, so we did look into it. I did read, so you're right, the ASTM standard was developed. The ASTM standard for everyone is that you get a consistent product. So you create a standard so that every time you add this additive to the concrete, it comes out the same. So they did get that. The issue that came up was the concrete transit company won't add that product, won't give us a design mix to give to the DOT to say, okay, here you go. Here's, 20% pozzolan. Here, DOT, this is the mix. The transit companies haven't picked up the product. The product exists. The DOT will accept it if they jump that hurdle and get this transit company to give it to us. And I've been in conversation with them as recently as last week in preparation of this meeting to find out where that's at. And they said, well, they're going to reach out to there's 3 transit mix companies in there, Dakota, Byram, and Brewster Transit. And one of them needs to, add this product to their mix to get that ball rolling. And none of those 3 have done that yet. So we did look at it. We're anxious to get glass into concrete, but that's where we're kind of stuck. If the concrete company won't send it to us or won't give us a mix for it, we're kind of stuck.
No, I understand. I mean, does it help if you tell them that, there's a forthcoming project and, we'd be willing to use it if they could do that. And just for the board, this uses recycled glass from Yonkers recycling facility, grinds it up, puts it into the concrete mix. So it takes a material that is otherwise not very useful, puts it into concrete's a huge carbon emitter. So it's a positive thing. And we want it to be a village that, maybe the first village in Westchester to do a big project like this.
Very cool. George, I have a question.
I guess we'll see what happens. It'd be nice if this is feasible in, 6 months from now when it comes into play. I think we still would be in favor of that.
George, my question is in reference to the trees. I remember sitting in a meeting almost a year ago about this, where we have identified the specific trees and the number of trees that were being removed. That continues to be the same. Nothing has changed, right?
So, yes, we have 5 trees to remain. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Most of them, 4 of them are on the side of the street with the restaurant, and I'm between Sushi Mike's and now I'm drawing a blank. Sam's, thank you. There's 4 of them on that side of the street, and there's 1 on the other side of the street at the other end by Chestnut. And that hasn't changed. But the concern is that, and I mentioned it earlier, that one of the roots, and this is the one up on Sam's that Wayne Kelly said, well, you might be able to save it. It's kind of centered in the tree box, but when we take out this slab of concrete and we find out that buttress root needs to be cut or pruned or something happens to it, and if we have to touch that root to make this work, then that tree needs to be removed, and then we'll have to put one next to it. So I didn't look at the other 4 trees, but I know that's at least one. And as I mentioned, it's starting to impact the wall in the back. So So we might be less one tree, but they will get evaluated during construction as well. So when we take out concrete, if we look at a route or something and we can't make grades and we can't make something work, we'll let everybody know and say, well, we tried to save it and this is where we're at, and we'll make a decision at that time.
Thank you.
The trees that are cut down will be replaced, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and George, just for the public knowledge, the tree wells are going to be bigger than what we have now to allow for more watering for the trees, correct?
So we do have, yes, in one of our details, we have, I'll show it to you here, this one. So we have a tree well that's on each side of the tree, it goes 10 feet past, and then it's 8 feet wide.
You have to reshare. We stop so we can see you.
Reshare.
You know, he was big on the
But
screen.
according to the memo, the drawings, they'll be 4 feet by 8 feet, right?
Yeah.
Instead of mulch.
Is it also the case that there's been some thought into the types of trees such that they are appropriate for the setting and also less likely to disturb the construction that we're putting in place? Is that still the case?
Can I just interject? We had a number of meetings, both with the representatives from the tree committee and with the village arborist. And there were some initial recommended species, which, we agreed fundamentally on them, and we mixed it up with some other ones that would provide some flowering trees. And also that would be better trees in terms of not growing too tall, not growing to have the situation that you had before. And second, the only other thing I wanted to comment, there's a lot of comments and questions that are being displayed on the screen. If you could please forward those questions to the clerk so we have an opportunity to consider them, and then we can respond both to you and to the board as appropriate. But so we worked very collaboratively to come up with trees and species that we thought would be most appropriate. We can provide you with the actual names.
Well, you have, right, we have them in the memo, the actual names of the trees, so that's good. And just for the record, the pink flowering cherry, the Japanese tree lilac, and the Japanese Zelkova wireless.
House number needed.
One of the things is that some of these trees, even regardless of the species that we actually plant, is known that they need to be replaced every, 15 to 20 years,
Really?
regardless of whatever you choose. Because we cover all of this over a year or so ago.
Can I ask,
Oh, go ahead.
so when the project when construction's underway, can you describe what that looks like? Like, is it just the sidewalks in front of a business that are basically unusable? How do people get up and down the street? Is it one side at a time? Can you describe the disruption that happens when we have to do this?
Sure. So what the contractor would likely do is like you just mentioned, they'd start on one side of the street, and likely they would start between Susie Mike's and Sam's, because doesn't have any business. It's only got Sam's at the end of the street. So you'd start at Cedar, and they would start by taking out the trees, demoing the sidewalk, and they would move down block by block. So in this case, you have one, and if you notice on the plans, you'll see I've labeled each of the businesses retail, restaurant. So they would demo the sidewalk, and then they would put a pedestrian walkway to each building entrance, so that somebody can get in and out of it. So they wouldn't think that the building is closed or the restaurant's closed or anything's shut down. They'll keep that open. Then they'll come in with a second crew, and they'll start doing the concrete sidewalk. When the second crew starts doing the sidewalk, the demolition crew will go to the next block and start working their way down to start demoing what's in front of them. So you have a crew that's doing demolition, and then you have a crew that's doing sidewalk behind them. So something will get torn up, something will get replaced. It'll be torn up and then replaced. And then we have an issue with the firehouse. So we have to take the fire trucks out, put them somewhere, probably down in the parking lot or somewhere overnight, or up in the probably down in the open parking lot on Palisades, so that we can do that one, because that one's a thicker sidewalk. It's got heavier, it's got thicker concrete. It's got a heavier payload because of the fire trucks. And then we'll move down, and there's only restaurants. Everyone's retail, the post office, the fire department. And we get into retail, and then we jump past Elm, which is all retail. And you have, towards the end, you have three restaurants in a row there. 4 actually on the one block between Elm and Chestnut. And then the other side is they'll go to all the way to the end of the street to Chestnut, and then they'll come back, and they'll go to the other side of the street, and they'll work their way back up the street. So we'll start at Chestnut down here, and they'll work their way up towards Cedar.
So one side of the street at a time and one section at a time. And do you know about how long roughly each section takes? Is it like days or weeks or a month?
So we mentioned that it's a 6-month project, so it would be 3 months on one side, 3 months on the other side. So breaking that up, it's roughly probably, if it's so it's probably every 800 feet. So from Cedar to Oak, it would probably be a month. From Oak to Elm would be a month, and then from Elm to Chestnut, it would be a month. So, and then same thing on the way back.
And when you're doing it on the sidewalk, do you block off that half of the street? And so it's one way on Main Street at that part of the street, or is it just the sidewalk that you're dealing with?
Just the sidewalk and the parking. So.
And the parking spot?
Yeah, you lose the parking and the sidewalk. So the other side, the other half of the street will be operation as usual. And then the other side of the street will be construction, more or less.
Thank you.
Yep.
Richard, there are 3 alternates for costs in here. And at what point do we make a decision, does the board make a decision about, whether we add true brick pavers or we have this faux brick stamping, which I think is a bad idea. The structural soil, which I'm not 100% sure where that's used or why we would want that. Maybe Mr. Palmer could add.
He extends the lives of trees.
Extends the life, thank you very much. Or tree grates versus this, the rubber tree well. I mean, I guess, when do we have to make a decision about that?
Yeah, so you'll release the bid when you're ready to release the bid, and you list them as options 1, 2, and 3. And then when they come to bid on the project, they'll give you a price on each of those options. So when you have the return on the number, you'll be able to make that decision when you award the bid.
Okay. When would we want to make, when should we do that? Is that something we're supposed to look at right now, or is that something we should?
Start to really, if you want to move ahead with the project, it's time to start to move it along. Yeah.
Okay. So the next couple of weeks, we should make a decision, get that Mr. Palmer, and he can finalize the documents. And
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to decide that you're gonna, if you're at certain options that you want to keep them open, then you want him to include them in the bid documents. If there's things that are off the table, then you can just remove them. But it doesn't cost any more to leave it in there as an option 1, 2, and 3. Because you're not gonna, at the end, you'll award the bid for, $100,000 plus option 1, but not 2 and 3.
no, the only benefit is to us in like figuring it out, deciding, and then going to the next thing.
How do we incorporate the Altice conduit thing? Like, how does, if we want to do that and have that be part of the project, how does that change the bid?
I think you'll see how far George gets with that in the next month, and then you'll have a better idea, how it probably is not part of this project because this is a granted project, and I don't know, I can't say, but maybe they would not reimburse for that. This may be something that you decide to take on your own. Right.
But if it can't be something we take on our own as part of this project, as an additional,
We'd have to check on that. As I said, it's a grant
Right.
funding, so it's.
because
done
it's
for a
80-20
specific-
and it has to be out of the
Yeah,
100%.
right.
You can't just,
And they limit what you're allowed to fund under a project. We could check that out.
yeah, that would be,
Let's check that
I mean, if George can make some headway with this, God bless. Really, if you're looking for something like this, you really should have, not you, but the village. should have
we've been
considered it.
talking about it for years,
Yeah.
but it just seems to,
I was cited,
Coordinating.
cited 2 communities that buried their wires. One of them, in fact, did. The other one, which is one of your neighbors, I called up and they had looked at it, but they scratched it because of the cost. So it's
and
it's
guess
a
who's
big-
kicking themselves now? Because it's only more expensive, so.
Of course.
Mhm. But if we can at least get Altice, that would be a step in the right direction, you know?
Well, yeah, that'd be great.
Considering that this project has to be completed by December 2022, it will be ideal to at least notify the businesses that this is already going out for bid, that we are following a 6-month project so that they can plan, even though it appears to be that it's not going to be disrupting to their business, but for them to think creatively of how they are going to operate during this time.
So correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection is that even though the sidewalks are dug up in the particular section, that access is still maintained to individual businesses, even if it's only a narrow access. But I'd be less than truthful if I didn't tell you, and I think we said it's gonna be highly disruptive.
Yeah.
Right, you know, so.
When's the earliest that it can start?
February in here.
Is that true?
No, is that true with weather and stuff? I mean, you're really gonna start destroying sidewalks in the middle of winter?
Yeah. Can it actually start in February, George?
Well, there's demolition work, so they're gonna start demoing down as they go down the street. And February, you can pour concrete in March if the temperatures are favorable. So, but there's a lot of legwork to do since it's a grant, and there's a lot of submissions to make. So you think you have a lot of time, and then by the time you go back and forth with the state and submissions and getting things back, it eats up time. So starting it sooner than later. I mean, if the contractor has to wait 2 or 3 weeks in March, that's not the end of the world. But you don't want to use up the time now and come close to the end in December and wishing you started earlier. So now's you have to starting the process now.
It's always take longer than we say, right? So we'll avoid take 6 months. I don't know. All right, as Richard said, if anybody from the public has any comments, they should send it to the village clerk. We will think about it, and if we want to move forward, we could put it on in November, and then we can move forward, correct? Okay. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
The next item is a continuation of a public hearing to consider an application for site plan approval / waivers for development of a property located at 398 Ashford Avenue. Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? The public hearing is officially opened. Do you want to come to the mic and
Wow, he's in
we
person.
get to see you in person? So you want to give us your name, your address, and who you are to this project?
David Lockport. I'm happy to be here. Nice to see everyone in person. Thank you for doing this. Just 2 comments on the last thing that I think maybe I could be helpful. I do work for a utility, and there have been situations where people can negotiate with Con Ed to actually have them cover some of the fee, because it's in their benefit to actually have the wires buried. So under the right circumstances, they actually bring down their maintenance costs by having those things underground. So with the right maneuvering, they would defer some of those costs to something to keep in mind. I think they would follow on sides of that negotiation.
Okay,
Noted.
thank you.
Happy to be here. I just wanted to mention, I know 2 weeks ago we had a discussion about those 2 parking spaces on the street. And I know, Mike, I know your position and some of the others on the safety around those parking spaces that are kind of on the street. I just, 2 weeks ago, I forgot to mention that when we had these hearings with planning, Ed Manley made a point of stating that these are currently legal spaces. They are current, those spaces do exist. The objective of the curb cut was to make them safer so that they are further off of the roadway. I'm just mentioning that because if the board would reconsider or consider that, how can we make these spaces that exist safer versus not having them there at all? So I'm just putting that out there. I know that we discussed this 2 weeks ago, so if that can be a consideration, I would appreciate at least if that is something that you could think about, because we would benefit from more.
And Mr. Mayor, you have your planner with you. She did speak with your engineer and she has comments on the parking scenario.
Where's my next move? So Valerie, can you explain the parking situation and what your thoughts are?
So, well, the board asked me to go back to Anthony and inquire as to his thoughts on the physical space of having those two spots located on Ashford Avenue. And technically, Anthony did say that based upon the spacing that's proposed, that those two spaces would be that Ashford Avenue would be able to accommodate those two spaces. His concern specifically was dealing with, but then you have the parking lot, which is right next to it, which will include the tandem spots and the backing out. So it becomes a very busy scenario. And so while physically those two spaces could be kept there, could be located there, Anthony wasn't exactly in support of, absolutely having those spaces. I think there was concerns from, some of your other emergency professionals, as well as, the planning board had concerns with those two spaces. I know Ed did mention at the planning board meeting that, technically parking isn't prohibited there. I don't know if they're officially designated spaces. I mean, that's something that Richard or Lori Lee would have to take a look at. But I think in terms of the overall project and in daily use of those spaces, I think the best means would be using the parking lot as opposed to the on-street Ashford Avenue spaces.
What if you only had one spot instead of two on Ashford Avenue?
I mean, I think, thanks, Nicole. I think any space helps. There's no question.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't asking you. I was asking Valerie. I'm sure you would appreciate another space.
But I mean, I think, again, having only one space, I think probably allows a little bit more for the, for sighting, in terms of cars coming and leaving that parking lot that's being proposed. But there is, if you look at the actual site plans, they are proposing to cut into the existing sidewalk in order to make space for the on-street parking spaces. And I can share my screen if you'd
That would be
like.
really helpful, but I'm pretty sure the only people who really use that sidewalk are going to be the people that live there, because it goes only into the sawmill.
Yes. So here are those two spaces that are being proposed, and let me just pull up so here is, right now, this is the existing, they're showing this is the existing sidewalk, and then this curb cut would be removed and then would ultimately become those two parking spaces. And so as you can see, the concern is that the parking lot is already not ideal, but it would allow for, additional spaces for the proposed building. And so then you're going to have, cars coming, entering, exiting the parking lot. And then you also have the two on-street spaces. And then you also have your on-ramp and off-ramp to the Sawmill Parkway. So there's just a lot taking place in that small area.
I just don't see the space. Even looking at it from up, from a satellite, it just doesn't look that there is enough space for somebody to safely enter the building, even like with a car in there. The spacing is very narrow for it to be considered to be safe.
It is narrow, and these are all things that are valid points. I don't want to diminish those points. I think the important thing to consider is that if this was retail, for example, it would be cars coming in and out of there on an hourly basis. Because it's residential, it's not like everyone's leaving and coming at the same time. It has a solution of, this is going to be crazy traffic. People leave to work in the morning. They don't always leave at the exact minute where when you're pulling out, someone else is pulling in. It's an entire day, right? If you're off by 1 minute, then you're not colliding with another car. That's just the way it works. So we're talking about one car coming in and out. The amount of traffic is not that much when you actually think about it. We're talking about residents who are coming to park. They leave in the morning and they come back in the evening. So it's not a lot when you compare it to the existing situation, which is retail.
If the board is considering, the on-street parking spaces, I think one space would probably be more advantageous to the overall operations of that site than 2 spaces.
Valerie, I have a question. The spaces are on the southern side of the road, right?
Yes.
So the cars are facing the parkway.
Yes. Yes.
So how did the cars get out of there without having a head-on collision with someone coming off the parkway?
No, they're
Not-
going onto the parkway.
Not coming
Right.
off the parkway, by probably entering the parkway.
Two-way.
Yeah.
It's on ramp and off ramp.
No, how did they exit the space? Do they get on the parkway?
I think they have to exit
No.
onto
Have to get on the park.
Have to, right?
Otherwise, you'd have to do a U-turn.
Over a double yellow line.
I mean, there's a house across the street, they have to let the driveway.
Is the line, what is the line below the cars? Is that the
Can't read that, I think.
is that the line on the parkway? Is that the lane?
So, I mean, this is not detailed, this piece here. So it looks like the traffic lane width that they're showing here is 16 feet, 8 inches. And that I would assume then is the roadway width. I mean, we can pull up the Google image if you'd like, and that might be a little bit easier than looking
Just
at
wondering
this.
how
It
much.
is helpful to see
Richard,
it.
here.
Richard, it looks like that line you're seeing is actually the striping on for the width of the road.
On the highway, right?
Yeah, my concern is also, it's like just mentioning that you just mentioned about the other side of the road has also a house with a driveway. I just honestly, for what I have witnessed in that intersection, that could get hectic at times. And to have it across the street that there is movement going on, vehicles getting off the highway, vehicles coming into the highway, I just really continue, the more that I see it, the more that I just don't think it's a smart thing to do.
Well, what gets me is the experts have decided that it's not the right thing to do, right? I mean, the planning board has said it shouldn't go there. The emergency services have said it shouldn't be there. And I think you just said, Anthony said it shouldn't be there, right? So am I correct in restating that?
Yeah, well, Anthony did say, I mean, he was looking at it straight, particularly from whether physically it would fit. This is the existing building right now. So this is the existing sidewalk, and then there's the on-ramp. So theoretically, some of that existing sidewalk would be removed in order to accommodate the on-street parking.
Valerie, show the top-down view, if you will, because I just pulled that
Yeah.
up on my computer. And I mean, it's interesting, there's a car parked the wrong way down off the road on the off-ramp. Then there's a driveway, then there's on-street parking. But yeah, it's interesting, you have a different image than I do, must be different timing. But if you picture a car parked across the street, and which there is off on the concrete piece that you see that's lighter there, cars coming on and off here, well, you can't see my arrow, but and then a car coming out of the driveway and cars on the street there, it is very, very tight to add 2 more spaces there that are going to be utilized frequently.
Okay, this is a public hearing. So there's anybody from the public who has any comments? Is there anybody online?
Hi. Hello,
We hear you.
can you hear me? Hi, Lee Constantine. I haven't reviewed this project to any extent pretty much, but just prima facie, it looks like it's really a dangerous thing to want to do that. So I can't see how that is safe.
Rick, do you have any comments on it? I hate to put you on the spot like that. You haven't done a study probably, but what's your thought?
Let's go to the microphone.
Go to the microphone so we can hear you. Yeah, whether or not we should plan on having two cars there, or no cars, or one car.
Yeah, as far as, to be sure, we know that there have been auto accidents coming off the sawmill there. I do not have any stats. We do not, our agency. This is, so that it does, seem to be a obligation to put parking, just some what I'm looking at initially. All projects. So, you can understand what Richard was saying as far as vehicles parked.
I can't hear you.
As far as vehicles parked on the south side, facing Sawmill. Operators will do what operators do. I certainly see people return to go back towards the village. So as far as coming off the Sawmill, they may not see that versus merging onto the Sawmill once they leave those parking spaces. But I'd have to look at this further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from anybody? Okay, put her on.
Oh, did you call me?
Yes.
Oh, I should take down, I should not be using my, my work Zoom photo. Anyhow, whatever I'm gonna say doesn't reflect on where I work for my job. But many years ago, I was working with an attorney in Hastings. We were working on a project for building a reuse of those gas stations on the Sawmill off of Farragut Avenue. And the Department of Transportation has a lot to say about ingress and egress off of that road. And I don't know if they have been submitted for comment, but I agree with the other boards. I think that this really is such a dangerous place. Recently, they're doing all kinds of signage changes on the Sawmill to make people slow down to a much lower level. I'm sure there's probably statistics on car accidents from people coming off that exit and coming around. It just doesn't seem to be a good good project. There's probably a number of reasons why it hasn't been done in the last 150 years, but just wanted to say you might want to check with the Department of Transportation.
Well, I mean, Donna and I have met with the Department of Transportation as well as with Mary Jane Chimsky's office and Andrew Stewart Cousins' office, and they did give us statistics, but those statistics were for exiting, primarily exiting off that exit. Is that correct, Donna? Just refresh my recollection.
Yeah, it had to do with these cars traveling south on the Sawmill and then turning into onto Ashford Avenue. The radius is not wide enough and people were taking it too fast and crossing the double yellow line and hitting cars that were on the other side entering the Sawmill. So that's why they're doing all the work there to try to slow the traffic down so people won't be taking that corner at speed. But cars have crossed that double yellow line to the other side. So having cars parked there, you know, it's still a possibility that could happen. And I don't know if you heard me before, I may have been muted, but I know he needs those spaces for the count, but we can also waive that and have him do a payment in lieu of parking.
Right, that is right now you have a resolution before you that assumes that you're going to do the payment in lieu of parking.
Okay, any other comments?
Did the planning board consider whether to have one spot there instead of two, Valerie?
The planning board recommended not to have parking along Ashford Avenue and instead have the applicant pay in lieu of parking.
No, I know what their final recommendation was. I'm just asking if during their discussions, if they had considered the one spot and rejected it or it just never came up.
No, it never came up.
Are we ready to move forward on this? And okay, she didn't use her 3 minutes the first time, so she has the rebalance of those 3 minutes.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to comment with
Lee,
regard.
we need you to identify yourself again.
Oh, I did. Lee Constantine. I want to say what I agree with what Vicky said, because when Rivertown Square had their proposal, and I think they proposed to the DOT because they wanted a curb cut. And they adamantly said, no, we don't want any more curb cuts on the Sawmill Parkway. So I think that goes hand in hand as to the safety aspects as to why. And we all know that also this exit backs up considerably at certain hours of the day. And all you need is one car to try to get out of a space or something and cause more backups. So I also agree with the planning board, and I think they should do a pile up.
Okay, thank you, Lee. So I'm inclined to grant it as the resolution is with no parking on street and to do the pileup. So I don't know how everybody else feels about it. Is everybody else okay with the way the resolution is, or do they want to make any other?
I agree with you, Vinny.
Okay. Donna?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Vinny, I have a question. As he said, right now, parking is allowed there. We may need to change that.
Correct.
I
So
think
let's
parking
keep
is
that in
just,
mind.
But we're
I
just,
think
let's just do the
parking
site
isn't-
plan resolution.
yeah, and I think parking is just not prohibited there, but that doesn't mean it's included in your parking count. So this, I just caution you, it doesn't look like it's striped. It doesn't look even big enough to include it
Yeah,
unless.
but just in case, we can prohibit parking there. That we
Not
can
in the
something to
site plan
consider at
resolution.
another time.
No, she's not saying that. She's just
Yeah.
saying we
I
should do
know.
it
Yeah.
separately.
Before we could take a vote or we could talk about it. Mike, how do you feel about
No,
it?
I think the resolution is clear and reflects what we agreed on the last time. I know the applicant making one last chance. I feel we exhausted the conversation and we should move forward with the resolution.
Christie, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree.
Nicole?
I'm okay with a pileup.
Maura?
Same here.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I need a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Trustee DeRosa, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? The public hearing is now closed. I think we're ready to move forward with this. We do have a resolution that's before us. I'm just very quickly going to read parts of it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees finds that the project is an unlisted action under SECRA based upon the review of the EAF and all the application materials and consultants report that was prepared for this action, the Board of Trustees adopts a negative declaration. Be it further resolved that pursuant to section 300-52E of the zoning and land use chapter of the village code, the applicant's requested waiver from the requirements of chapter 300 will be consistent with the purpose of promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the community. And said chapter and hereby grants the following. 1, a waiver from a maximum impervious coverage of 40% to allow for a maximum coverage of 91.7%. 2, a waiver from the minimum residential dwelling unit size of 600 feet for proposed units 2 and 3, which will contain 447 and 449 square feet respectively. And 3, a waiver of 2 off-street parking spaces, whereas 4 were required. Be it further resolved that we will be requiring payment in lieu of parking in accordance with the master fee schedule. Be it further resolved that the village board hereby finds that a proper case exists for requiring that a park be suitably located for playground or other recreational purposes within the village, and the village board finds in accordance with section 352J that a park cannot be suitably located on the property, requiring a payment of a fee in accordance with the master fee schedule. And it goes on and on with the listing of requirements that have to be met for this project. Can get a certificate of occupancy. So is there a motion for this? Trustee DeRosa, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. So congratulations.
And
It's done.
2 things I want to say. Number 1, thank everyone for this. Honestly, Everyone has spent a lot of time on not just on me, but I know this is, you probably rather be doing other things on just in that spot, and I appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate it. What are the next steps for determining those master schedules? I know there was some questions about that exact, that fee schedule.
The good news is that we recently changed the fee schedule based on size of unit. And it used to be one number for every type of unit. It is now scaled to be appropriate for the size. So you don't have to pay for a 447 square foot what someone would otherwise pay for a 3,000 square foot rental. So it does help you. So you're the one benefit of this having taken so long is that we implemented that change to the master fee schedule for those. That's a part of the park.
I think the next step
Direct.
is the building department issues those fees with the permit, right, Laura Lee?
Yeah. So you need to make a building permit application with the building department and the fees will be assessed and determined in accordance with that.
And you'll also want to update your plans to reflect that the 2 parking spaces are no longer part of the site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see the final product.
Public hearing number 2 is, do I have to open the public hearing to continue it, Laura Lee?
Number 2,
Yeah, public hearing, do I have to?
19 Livingston.
She sent an
No,
updated
she's just
agenda.
continuing it. Do I, oh, is that on yours?
It's not mine.
All right, never mind.
I mean, you can just announce that the applicant
Okay.
has asked.
I just want to know if I had to open.
Because
it.
you're not taking any testimony tonight, so.
So the public hearing number 2 was a continuation of a public hearing to consider the written request for a waiver regarding set aside for affordable housing on 19 Livingston Avenue. We received a request from the applicant to adjourn that. So we will adjourn that to the November 23rd Board of Trustee meeting. So we're going to continue this
Oh,
public.
damn, I won't be at that meeting. On vacation.
You can Zoom in.
Aruba.
Yes, from Aruba.
You're not going to be here on our last night?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be on, it's Thanksgiving week. I'm gonna be on vacation.
Okay. So this meeting's, so that public hearing's been adjourned to November 23rd at 6:30. Courtesy of the floor, is anybody here? Come on up.
Forgot.
What next workshop to determine if we should opt in, opt out, but
There won't be another workshop. There will be a meeting, a final meeting that will be held sometime in November, we think, to make the vote.
so we're gonna have a meeting in November.
9, yeah.
When?
At your next meeting, it'll be on for discussion and you'll call for a public hearing if you're going to pass the law to opt out.
Which, right, so that could be on November 23rd.
Right.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a meeting when?
The 9th and then the 23rd to vote.
November 9th.
But the voting will be, the decision that we make, we plan on doing it on the 23rd.
We're gonna make that decision that night also,
No, on the 23rd.
on the 23rd.
You have to have a public
We
hearing.
have already made a decision.
No.
Okay. Now, at this next meeting, we're gonna be allowed to speak about this before you.
Yeah, we'll allow that.
So I don't have to read this now, I have to wait till
Right.
that meeting.
You'll have your 3 minutes then.
I don't want my 3 minutes now, I want it at that next meeting.
Right, you'll have it
It'll be a
then.
public
I
hearing.
want My 3 minutes then.
Yes.
Okay. One other thing on that intersection of that telephone is towards the telephone. Okay. That intersection right there, when you're coming off the parkway, sometimes it's backed up all the way out, even past the lane to where you're safe. Pretty dangerous. Now, that white line that divides whether you're going to Ardsley or Dobbs Ferry needs to be extended at least another 50 feet down to Northfield. Because these people come in and they take up both lanes, which would have people coming more allowed to go through. You understand what I'm saying? If you extended that white line another 50 or 60 feet down to Northfield, it would probably eliminate some of the problem of the back.
We could take a look at that.
Can I,
You're allowed to speak at this next meeting.
well, I was gonna request
You
if you can
will.
send that in writing to us on an email.
Excuse me?
I was gonna request if you can send what you have ready on an email for us.
This year?
Yes.
No, I'm gonna do that.
Can you do both?
I don't want that you ended up being cut off. I want to read it.
It's not gonna happen. I got everything written right here.
Just don't go to Aruba.
Bob, you can always do both.
Yes.
Bob, you can always do both.
Yes, come on up.
Is it my turn now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, my name is Ann Schneider, 100 Belden Avenue, and I'm on the corner of Pietro Place, that all the homes there.
Right.
Devastated. My home was perfect, but I'm here to speak up for them. I spoke with somebody from Gucci's construction company this week, and he said the size of the pipes coming through the park with the water are 5 feet across. But he said that's what we need on Pietro Place, so that the damage wouldn't come again to the poor people that live there. The life is out of there, and it's so sad. So whatever you could do to think about that. And so, good luck.
Thank you. I know, Richard, could you just expand upon what we did this week?
Sure. So the village has taken the situation very seriously, as you know, because you live there. We've been out there a number of times to look at the situation. And as you say, this week, a contractor came out to make an emergency repair, doing work on catch basins on Maple and also on Pietro Place. So this is only an attempt at an interim solution while we look at a larger, look at the entire area for, try to identify the larger issues and deal with them. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else online? Okay.
Steve, you're up.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted? Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm also speaking in support of your resolutions to address sanitary and stormwater infrastructure. I have had at Elm Street and Main Street, from both ends of my property, tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage due to, on the one hand, the fact that sanitary sewer is still combined with stormwater, so that when Ida came through, a huge amount of stormwater moves through the sanitary pipes and deposited, certain unmentioned products in the basement of the little house next to my building. So that extracting and decombining stormwater and sanitary, I think, is an important piece of infrastructure work that needs to be done in the center part of the village, at least. And secondly, who knew that the parking lot, the above my building, the outlet from the catch basin runs through my building, so that my property is actually part of the village stormwater infrastructure. So that led to an additional second episode of significant damage. So I had Steve Trezza and Dan from Dolph Rodfeld's office at the site. And I really want to support the investigation of potentially green infrastructure for the parking lot, which would be a step forward in green infrastructure for the village as a demonstration project for detention, and would then address the amount of stormwater that comes down to Main Street off of that parking lot, because the stormwater really works, the storm system works backwards in major events. And that affects other people on Main Street and even below Main Street. So strong support. I'm, anything that I can do to help out. I've been significantly damaged by this past series of episodes. So thanks again.
Very
Thank
much.
you. Hey, who's next?
Margaret's copy.
Can you hear me?
Sorry about mispronouncing
You can hear me, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm here this evening virtually as the spokesperson willing to brave the storm for the Dobbs Ferry Sustainability Task Force, although I chose to stay at home. We want to thank the mayor, trustees, and village staff for assisting the county in an update of our hazard mitigation plan, which I think was last developed in 2015. We understand that the county received a grant to help cover the cost of this effort and that each of the villages is able to have a section that will qualify the residents and businesses in those villages to support from FEMA, including grants, loans, and other assistance. As I hope you all are aware, the Sustainability Task Force prepared the village's climate action plan, which was adopted several years ago and then updated recently. We were previously given a silver rating, but are now rated bronze. We are still working to augment our accomplishments so that we can restore our silver rating. These ratings have value since they make us eligible for funding. I think I'm correct in saying that if we update our hazard mitigation plan, that's going to help give us some more points. So hopefully that'll put us over and we'll be back in the silver category. In January 2020, the Sustainability Task Force formed a subcommittee to develop a climate resiliency plan. We started working on this, but were sidelined by COVID. However, we did have a chance to establish a number of the concerns that we have used as the foundation for that plan. The list we established has been updated and augmented, continues to be so, and it starts with an understanding of what we believe to be the hazards that most affect us. As we are seeing again today, weather patterns are changing and climate change is all about increased hazards. While our hope is that we will be directly engaged in the preparation of the climate resiliency plan, we would like to provide a copy of our hazard mitigation plan priorities list to assist with the preparation of the hazard mitigation plan that you are currently completing. Our primary concern is a simple one. A hazard mitigation plan has been prepared, and once a hazard mitigation plan has been prepared and accepted, the village can augment it, provided that the augmentation is further development of what is already in the hazard mitigation plan. So we're hoping that all of the kinds of issues and concerns we have can be at least mentioned. I did review the 2015, and there were a number of things that only got on the list, but my understanding is that simply being on the list, if we had that kind of a catastrophic event, say an earthquake or something, as long as it was on our list, would be eligible for the funding. The list we've created, which I'm not going to try and read tonight because I think I'm already over 3 minutes, we broke it down into 4 categories. If I can, I'd just like to give you a sample of each one of those. They're very quick. Our first category is hardening facilities. I think this dovetails with what Steve was just talking about. And also perhaps what's going on over at DiPietro Place. Increased stormwater, sewer, and drainage channel function to manage higher water levels and increased water runoff volumes. This will include increasing stormwater absorption and decreasing flow discharge by using green infrastructure such as bioswales, rain gardens, and subsurface detention structures. Our second category is expanding community networks. An example from that is establish and maintain accessible communication networks between all community groups in an effort to help align people in need with people who can help. Our third category is providing emergency supplies and places of refuge. One of the topics under that, or the ideas under that, is identify locations for refuge within the village, including public buildings such as village and public school buildings, as well as other institutions such as churches, synagogues, and private schools. And our last category is reinforcing the village resilience. And an example under that category is encourage improved maintenance of existing building stock so that it is better prepared to resist adverse impacts while also being more efficient, reducing the use of non-renewable resources. So unless you have some questions, I think We're basically just saying thanks a lot for what you're already doing, and we are ready, willing, and able to help in moving forward with anything that we can be helpful on.
Thank you, Patty. You certainly, want to send that to the village administrator and the village staff so they can review it, and any other research that you've done and reports that you have done in the past. We're happy to take a look at it.
Sounds terrific. I appreciate it.
Richard, wouldn't the whole energy performance contractor, would that help us get back to a silver rating also if we were to be doing that kind of work?
Some of the work should be
Right.
assistance in that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Who's next? No, who's next? All right, Lee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I just want to talk a little bit on the heels of the other presentation earlier with regards to burying the electric wires. So that brings to mind as to where we are with the river towns burying the wires and when that will take place.
Excuse me?
Is that part of their site plan?
Yeah, there was. There's one spot there, I think, I don't know if we've done any research on that. There is, if we
I
can.
thought there was a question about, with Con Ed, you mean?
Yes,
I thought it had to, I don't really know you, but I thought it had to do with your property.
yes, access.
The inability to get access to your property, but if you want to discuss it further, contact the administrator's office. I'm happily to speak about it.
Okay, do you have, what is your email?
It is village administrator
Hold on, village administrator,
@dobbsferry.com.
village administrator
At,
at jobsberry.com.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've been ready to do this. They had some issues where they didn't respond back to the last.
Okay,
back
so
and
I
forth
think that,
emails, so-
send me an email and let's see if we can navigate it and get it done.
Right, and who would be doing it? Would it be Regency or Sabre at this point?
Again, I'm new to the game, so if you
Oh, okay.
contact me and we talk about it, you can tell me what
Okay.
you know, and I'll tell you
Okay.
what I can find out.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
oh, you're
Anybody-
welcome.
Anybody else?
We have Vicky Jones last.
Okay.
Vicky, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I wish you could show my face and not my work profile Zoom, but anyhow, I'd like to thank the board for the
We just need you to
wonderful.
state your name because with
Oh,
this, we have to prepare a transcript and it's
Of
impossible.
course. How silly of me. I have not been at a meeting for a while. Vicky Jones, 55 Grandview Avenue, Dobbs Ferry, New York.
Go ahead.
Did you get that?
I
Okay.
got it.
Anyhow, I'd like to thank the board very much for the resolution that they passed to honor me. It was very meaningful. I told most of my friends, most people have to die to get the kind of recognition I got that year. So I really appreciate it. But I'm here tonight to talk to you about something that's really great. And I'm so excited that we are here for a second year in a row to talk about the giving trees in memory of my friend Mary Caruso. I'd like to introduce you to a wonderful woman, Ann Souza. Many of her know her as Sweetie, who has stepped up to run many of the programs. And I'd like Sweetie just to talk to you about some of the projects that we did this year through the Friends of the Library and the Mary's Yarns group. We also recently just started a crocheting group. And what we're really here tonight is to ask you permission again to line the trees on Cedar and Main Street with handmade scarves. We would like to be able to try and do this annually, and we would like your permission. And why don't you tell them about some of the other projects we did other than the giving trees last year?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, great. All right. Well, first, to run off of what Vicky was saying, this is in honor of Mary Caruso. And it was established in October 10th, 2020. So we just had our anniversary. And we've done 5 acts of giving. We have about 50 members at the moment. And these women's hands move so fast, I don't know how they do it. we have done 5 different acts of kindness. The first one, like Vicky said, was the giving trees. And we would like to do that. I think it's the 20th, and the rain check on that would be the 21st. Tying the scarves around all the trees. The response we got last year, I wasn't sure how it was going to be with some of the residents, but it was amazing. We were tying, and it was just sandblasting all over social media, different platforms. I had people stopping me. I had one gentleman from one of the coffee shops who stopped me and said, "You can just take these, right?" I said, "Yeah, if you're in need, definitely." Or if you've just had, we all had such a bad year with COVID that if it would brighten up your day, that's what they're for. And he said he talked to a gentleman who didn't have money and needed the scarf. And he gave it to him. They took it off the pole, and he was just so delighted with what we were doing. We had so many people stop us. So that was our first act of kindness. Our second one was with the senior citizens who received Meals on Wheels. I work with the rec department on that. That was supposed to be at Christmas, but instead it went to Valentine's Day because the PBA had donated so much at that point for the seniors. So we did Valentine's Day, and it was amazing. I had people screaming like down the street, "Wait, oh, don't you do Mary's Yarns?" One woman was telling me about her mother who had a brain tumor and could not for some reason wear a hat. And we had knitted bands that went just around the ears to keep them warm when they would go out to a doctor's. And it was just amazing, the response we got from everyone on that one. Then we worked with Paula McCartney from the American Legion with Operation Baby Shower. And all the women just loved this. It was baby blankets, sweaters, hats, whatever we can do. And what it is military who are deployed, the husbands, the wives that are home pregnant, they do baby showers. So they collect all this together so that they can have a beautiful shower for the military spouses.
I
So that
don't
was
want to
the
cut you off, but you're way over the 3 minutes. So we're all in favor of this project. It sounds like it's a great idea. I think you did it last year. I think we're okay with it. So if we just have the details, we could move forward with that.
I'll
Okay.
call Johnny Trezza and work that out. Mary,
I think I had already put Mary McNamara in touch with Richard, right, Richard?
I don't recall
I
that.
said, somebody sent me an email a couple of days ago, and I forwarded or copied Richard on the response. If you didn't get it, I can re-forward it.
All right, if you could.
Just to coordinate through the administrator's office, and then he can, farm it out so that we can do it again, because it really was the Giving Tree was a great hit last year, and we're really thankful for all that you ladies are doing. Or men too, if there's men involved. All you
thank
people
you,
are doing.
Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to discussion items. Number 1, we've already taken care of. Number 2, is the application for a grant opportunity regarding.
Mr. Mayor, there were still 2 hands that were up. Oh, I guess now they're down, but I don't know if there were other people who wanted to say something.
What was that one? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Can you tell us your name, please, and your address?
Sorry about that. It's Scott Ash, 152 Broadway, Dobbs Ferry, New York. I'd like to comment on the 10-year capital plan. I think this was discussed at a couple meetings ago, and there was a proposal put forth by the Department of Recreation for an indoor pool at the rec center or somewhere at the cost of about $2 million. And I believe there was a comment that sounds aspirational. And I'd like to provide some information in support of the building of a pool. A pool can be used by all members of the community for many different activities, from babies to seniors to handicapped, swimming, exercise, used by people who are, as I said, are handicapped to get some exercise. And there's also a great thing that I just learned about pools, indoor pools especially. There is tremendous demand for indoor pools in the county. If you speak with there is an indoor pool at at the Ossining Rec Center. If you speak to them, you can find out that you will likely recover, if not the entire cost, most of the cost of the construction of the pool just by renting it out. So I would urge the board to perhaps have the, who's ever, the head of the Department of Recreation here in Dobbs Ferry speak with the head of the Department of Recreation in Ossining, where they have an indoor pool, and to find out about opportunities for renting out a pool and how much money can be gained by that, which could be used to cover the costs of putting in a pool in Dobbs Ferry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Yeah, we have Steve Tilly. Yeah.
Steve Tilly, 22 Elm Street. Just a quick addendum to the three topics of the evening, infrastructure, resilience, and burying the wires. They coincide. Anytime you open up a street for the sewer, bury the wires. So it combines, it brings all those three subjects together.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Discussion item number 2 is the application for the grant regarding the design for Storm Street crosswalk. I think we're in receipt of a memo from you, Richard, detailing that. Can you just expand upon it?
Sure. We discussed this with the board several months ago. This is a proposal to put in a sidewalk and do some sidewalk reconfiguration at the intersection of Storm and Ashford. This is a grant that was successfully transferred through Senator Abenante's office, so that it could be repurposed for this. This project at Storm and Ashford was one of the highest priorities of the traffic committee. So we were trying to see how it could be implemented. We had an engineer review the plans, and they've since been modified. And our new planner had an opportunity to review it. And we also had a traffic engineer look at it as well. So they have some updated proposals, which have also been reviewed by the traffic committee. And so they're here to present to you tonight. And we're really looking to see if we can reach a decision mode. You'll see one of the things that was changed was narrowing of Ashford and a bump out at the intersection with Storm. That was to accommodate some of the pedestrians and kids that are crossing that you'll see. There's also an option that was discussed about putting a right turn lane on Ashford just to try to deal with some of the backed up traffic. But at this point, I'll turn it over to the traffic engineer and he can fill you in on the latest updates and take your comments and questions. So Valerie, if you want to do the introductions.
Sure. I think, Jen, we need to bring in Russell Scott on. So just to give you a little background, there were some initial designs associated with this intersection. And I recommended that because this is really the goal of the intersection changes or for pedestrian safety, that a traffic engineer should review it in terms of with the lens of pedestrian safety. And so we brought in Russell Scott, who's also works with an affiliated engineering firm with Nelson Pope and Voorhees, Nelson Pope. And so I'll turn it over to him. He came up with some conceptual designs, also met with the traffic committee, and has been working closely with Richard on this particular project. So Russ.
Something have to be done.
Yeah.
In the next 2 seconds.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
We can.
Hi, I'm Russ Scott from Nelson and Pope Engineers. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. I am going to attempt to share my screen to make this a little bit easier. So I am sharing this screen. And
thank you.
Hold on a second. I think I shared the Google and I wanted to share the plan. We can start with the Google. So initially we took a look at the intersection, existing conditions, site distances. I visited the site during the peak arrival time for the students at the school. I believe it was 2 Fridays ago. I spoke to the crossing guard to get a general feel of what their concerns are and what they have seen over the years with the traffic patterns. It appears that most of the pedestrian traffic is headed in the morning on the way to school on the northern side of Ashford, crossing over Storm and continuing down Ashford, or making the right and headed down Storm Street. I also saw some pedestrians crossing Grandview across Ashford and then down Storm or down to Ashford. The pedestrians were definitely more heavily on the north side of the intersection. So we made some tweaks to our concept plans, and I would like to switch over to that. All right, sorry about that. So do you see the concepts?
I think we saw the concepts while you were talking about the existing conditions.
Oh, I don't have that green line around my screen like I usually do. So you should see the concepts now, correct?
Yes.
All right. So initially, before we met with the traffic committee, we came up with adding curb bump outs on the western side of the intersection, to shorten their crossing distance for people, getting across the intersection, and to try to slow down traffic a little bit that is headed east and west along Ashford. Along with these curb bump outs, we were looking to install rapid flashing beacons that have push buttons. They will only flash when activated. The crossing guards could utilize these to help assist get the kids across the road during school hours. Another concern was the speed of the vehicles making the right turn headed down Storm Street. So we looked at just doing that with pavement markings to keep some of the costs down. We realized that the grant is only for $80,000. Costs are increasing right now. So we thought that to stay well within the budget, we would be able to install these 2 curb bump outs with the rapid flashing beacons, add some advanced signing that's in accordance with the manual. After that, we did some additional thoughts. There was some concern that people making the right turn would just drive over the markings, and we really would not be solving the right turn issue. So I was asked by the traffic committee to consider adding crosswalks at, all 4 legs of the intersection. After my site visit, I determined that it wasn't really necessary to have a crosswalk crossing Ashford in 2 different locations. It would drive up the cost of the project, because if we had 2 crosswalks, one on the east side and one on the west side, you really want to have these rapid flashing beacons, on each one of those crosswalks. So it didn't seem reasonable to include both crosswalks. Like I said before, the pedestrian traffic was not as heavy crossing Ashford. So I didn't see the sense or the need to have the 2 crosswalks. I'd like to also note on Grandview, there's existing sidewalk on both sides of the street. On the west side of Grandview, it only extends about 150 to 200 feet, and then it ends. On the other side of Grandview, it extends about 500 feet, but it also ends. So there's no reason to put a crosswalk on one side of the street or the other just because of the sidewalk. There is not continuous sidewalk through the project area. There's also a concern of sight distance as you're headed to the west along Ashford Avenue. As everyone knows, there's a hill there, and it's difficult to see the intersections and people in the crosswalk. So we felt that the further we can move the crosswalk from the hill, it gave the drivers better reaction time to be able to see the people in the crosswalk, see the signage, and react and be able to hit their brakes. So the other concept included this. So the other concept included another curb bump out on the east side of the intersection, just to eliminate those right turn vehicles from slipping through. And it also provides us the ability to move the stop bar out and the crosswalk out closer to Ashford. I noticed when I was out there, a lot of the cars pulled way past the stop bar, in front of the crosswalk, and stopped to be able to see cars coming from the left and the right. And then kids were now crossing the street behind that vehicle, and there was another vehicle pulling up behind them, which creates a dangerous condition. So I feel by adding the other bump out, you have the ability to move that stop bar further up, so that people can see up and down the road. It also eliminates that right turn vehicle from trying to get around the person that's going through, cutting off and making a quick turn up Storm Street. We revisited the costs. This does not include another crosswalk on the east side of the roadway. So we believe that with just curb and concrete sidewalk and an ADA accessible pedestrian ramp, that we could find a way to fit this into that $80,000 budget. So the overall goal is, to improve the sight distance, shorten the distances, allow vehicles to see the pedestrians in the crosswalk by the use of signs. I do have a concern for once we get past through the intersection, a lot of vehicles use, even though it's not striped as 2 lanes, a lot of vehicles use this as 2 lanes to get to the right turn lane further down the road. By reducing the width of the roadway during peak hours of travel, the backup along Ashford will be extended because people are not going to be able to sneak around the car that is waiting for the light to turn green further down the road. So there's always a trade-off on pedestrian improvements versus capacity improvements. So that is something that needs to be considered. I do see that queue length will increase. I can't say how much, but there was a significant amount of cars sneaking past those through cars.
And I just want to be clear, the traffic committee, the difference was they wanted a crosswalk over another crosswalk going over Ashford.
Yeah, they still, I was in the meetings. It's, we're talking a lot about the Springhurst or the schools and the left side crosswalk, but there is
Right.
the nursery school over there on the right. And I'm not sure if the engineer was there during that part, but there's a lot of people just bolting across the street to pick up and drop off kids there at the nursery school with much younger kids that are more likely to just jet into the wrong place. And so the traffic committee still wanted that 4th crosswalk there to complete the system and to have that space for the people who cross there to be able to cross, because they're not going to go all the way to the other crosswalk to do it.
Yeah, you have to go 3 crosswalks. If you're on the south side of Ashford, you're heading west, like where that right box is in the bottom right-hand corner, you're walking down Ashford, you have to make 3 crosswalks to get to the nursery school. Whereas people aren't gonna do that, just gonna
They
go
just cross.
walk across the middle of the street.
Right.
How much,
So there's a certain logic there. I mean, I just prefer this plan because I think there's just the extra curb. I don't know, we talked about a little traffic backup versus potential of like a kid getting hit by a car, and I think it's the obvious choice. We'll deal with a little more traffic. But I don't know, I guess it seems like you should always put in 4. I know, just thinking about the other one at Gould Park, so Washington and Ashford, where there's only 2, right? And so the other 2, I mean, people are crossing on all 4 sides, especially when there's a football game or something and people are parking up at the hospital. And so I just think there's a need for it.
how much does it add to the project to add the 4th crosswalk?
Probably between around $20,000 to $25,000.
How much?
It's because of the lights
Because
though,
of the
right?
flashing light.
Because of the
It's
flashing
because of
lights.
the rapid flashing beacons, correct.
Yeah.
If you
So
would
they
just
wanna
add
have-
the crosswalk and it's uncontrolled, the cost is less.
Mhm. And there's no, that's not an option to have the flashing beacons on I
So
can't get my directions right. That one.
Yes.
That's
Do you
west.
need the flashing beacons on all 4 or just on the ones crossing Ashford?
No, But he's saying he would, if you put the new crosswalk on the east side, you
I
would
know.
need,
I'm saying, but it looks like it has it on all 4 crosswalks. I don't know that you need it on the side street crosswalks.
No, the rapid flashing beacons are only for crossing Ashford
Oh, okay.
because that's the high speed road. And it's the through movement. People have to stop at the stop sign, so there's no need to install those for the
Right,
side
right.
streets.
But I don't think I've ever, I mean, it's hard, you will know this better. I can't think of an instance where there's a 4-sided crosswalk like this and there's the flashing beacon on both sides. I mean, is that a common practice? When you do the flashing beacon and you have 2 crosswalks in a situation like this, do you always do both of them? Or is it reasonable to just do it on one?
No, so in my opinion, the rapid flashing beacon is a method that's utilized when you have a single crosswalk. The manual has what they call a hawk signal, which is on a mast arm and looks more like a traditional traffic signal. It has 2 red traffic signal sections next to each other, and then below it, in the middle of the 2, it has a yellow. So you would have a push button like a traditional traffic signal, and it will alternate red, red, red. Kind of, it's very similar to a traffic fire station or a firehouse. When they hit their button, they come out of the firehouse. Sometimes they have this signal that will go all red to tell everybody they have to stop so that the fire trucks can come out. So if you were to do crosswalks on all 4 corners, I don't think you would use rapid flashing beacons. You would use this hawk beacon, which is a mast arm closer to a traffic signal look, and you would have push buttons on all 4 corners. And it would only be activated when someone is crossing the intersection. It would hang over the center of the intersection so that all the vehicles would be able to see it.
Cost of that would be the 25,000 or?
No, the 25,000 is for the 2 additional rapid flashing beacons. I feel if you put 4 rapid flashing beacons up, you lose the appearance. They're going to get lost behind each other of which crosswalk is going off and which not. I would not recommend installing 4. That was one of the reasons we were leaning towards the single crosswalk also.
And are you also against just the crosswalk on the east side without the flashing beacons? Is there a logic to not including that? So having the rapid flash on the west and just the striped crosswalk on the east.
So you're teaching people that drive through the area frequently that when someone's in the crosswalk, they should see the rapid flashing beacon. So now they're going to be confused because on one side of the intersection, you're telling them one thing, and on the other side of the intersection, you're telling them something else. So if someone gets used to seeing the rapid flashing beacon and the lights flashing when someone's in the crosswalk, they don't see it and someone is crossing on the other side, they may not stop.
Or worse, they see it in the further intersection and aren't paying attention
correct.
right in front of them. where it's
100%.
Crossing without the light.
Does it make sense to have the crosswalk then be on the other cutout instead of the where it is now?
So one of the reasons we pushed it further away was because of the crest of the hill. But, you know, if the local knowledge is saying, hey, there's a lot more pedestrian traffic on the one side than the other, it would make sense. You're just pushing it closer to the crest of the hill and it's more difficult to stop. We're only talking 100 feet.
More difficult for cars to stop?
Yeah, just more harder to see. Like it's hard to see, Nicole, like when you're going up the hill,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
hard to see that corner. It's
Yeah.
just like you just can't.
I agree.
Yeah, if we were on a flat section, it wouldn't make a difference. But with the hill and there's some tough sight lines there.
You made it look flat, so. I know how steep that hill is. I used to run it, but. All right. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's $80,000. I mean, we have to lay out the money, but we'll get reimbursed. But anything extra is on us, right? So
I don't think it's a money issue. I think there's a pretty clear case. I mean, I understand why the traffic committee recommended that because there's a certain logic, but I think he has a pretty well thought through, and I think this is the right plan. I don't know that. I mean,
But like you were saying, you have to walk to go to the Christian preschool, you have to walk, if
I
you're on
know.
certain side, you have to walk 3 different ways to get
I
around
mean,
it.
Russ, what do you think with that? Like how do you help the people cross on that side of the street if people are,
Can we ask the preschool how many people are actually doing that? Because most of the time I'm there, they're dropping off on the same side.
yeah.
yeah, well, what happened, they drop off, like people who are coming, going east on Ashford, they park on the other side. You can see there's like this really wide there.
Yeah.
And then they just cross right over.
Mhm.
So those people probably aren't going to use the crosswalk anyway, right? They're parking there, just going to get out of the car and go across the street.
At least now they'll be safer because with those lines that they are actually narrowing the road,
Yeah.
they're gonna be safer getting out of the car because sometimes I'm scared for them as I'm passing by and I see the kids coming out of the car.
Mhm. Is there, having a stop sign there is not an option?
It could be considered, it's definitely gonna, so now you're backing up the traffic and creating, it's the capacity versus safety thing, when there aren't people in this crosswalk, now you're stopping all that traffic from flowing freely.
24 hours a day.
Mhm.
instead
Yeah,
of just,
24 hours a
2
day,
hours.
right.
What else?
I mean, we really need this, but even with this design, traffic in this already problematic. This is going to create even larger backup.
Yeah, tremendous backup.
Well, I
Maybe
think
some
all of
people
it
start
is
going
still
different
like
ways to get to work.
7,000 times better than what we have, which is just like a big open free for all. So
Yeah, it is, after you get past Storm Street, that spot right there is it's a free for all right there.
Yeah.
and how much is it for all of the planters that we're gonna need for those bump outs to make it attractive?
I know, I was thinking about that.
That's not in the budget, but needs
Maybe
to
a
be
rain
considered.
garden, small rain garden. you could do it.
You know,
Rock garden? Is that-
Yes.
can we really design something, of course, that it will not compromise the view of anybody making a right turn or anybody passing through, but something that will be like in a small island in that section that is by the school? Is so large, yes, something that can be like a little island in there that can create some green space.
Yeah, that's a good
Yes.
place to spend some extra money. Yeah.
Yes, correct. You could install some low-lying plantings. We just threw a gray hatch in there, but you can definitely make that more decorative.
But I mean something that is an opening ground right on that section, nothing that it will be already, that you will be built around it, that you will be living in a space like an island to have planters going in there, but I mean right in the ground.
Yeah, like it's not all concrete.
Yeah.
That is not.
And there is,
Yeah, correct,
there's
right.
drainage there though, right? There's.
So
that's part of-
there's a drainage structure there
Yeah.
that is going to drive up the cost. I thought about that a lot after our last meeting. And it's either installing a very small structure and then piping into that existing drainage structure and converting it to a manhole, or creating some sort of, I've seen where they put a pipe underneath the sidewalk and it collects the water and gets it to the drainage structure. There's a lot of different options that we can do to
Is that
get
you
the
guys that
water.
designs what could go there, like in terms of beautification? Is that you or no?
Yes, that would be us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we have
Pretty.
landscape architects on staff and stuff like that.
Right, just for the board to understand, this is a concept plan. So ultimately, this will have to go into, there will have to be full design on this if the board decides to move forward with any one of the concept plans.
Ask one more thing. How is bike lanes considered in all these measurements? Like with the bump outs? Is there room between the cars and the bump
So
out?
that was one of the things that was discussed and I didn't tackle in the concepts.
Okay.
If we really are looking to add the bike lanes, we have to pull the bump outs back a little bit further. Right now, there's only a 1 foot shoulder. We need to have, I believe it's 5 feet with curb, 4 feet without curb. So we're going to have to pull the bump outs back a little bit. There's a balance there.
I think we
You're
should.
gonna have a four, maybe we install it on one side.
Yeah.
And create a 4 foot shoulder on one side and a 1 foot shoulder on the other side, so that you're not opening this area up again. But we definitely need to consider something.
Okay, let's do that. I think we should include a bike lane. I saw something from Patty. What did he say? No, forget it.
Just email us, Patty.
Email it to us, Patty. Anybody else who has a comment, especially from the traffic committee, certainly can.
Rob couldn't be here tonight. But he sent me bullet points. That's what I'm going on. That's part of my.
Do you want Patty to talk so you can make a decision on this?
Yeah, if he keeps us to less than 3 minutes. Just the traffic committee, huh?
You're actually giving me the chance to talk again. That's pretty cool.
I know.
It's outrageous.
Sustainability.
So what is your question?
Oh, what did you want to say?
Well, basically, what there's a whole misperception at times with the goals of traffic versus transportation. And what we're really dealing with here is multi-modalities of people walking, people biking, people in cars, trucks, everything else. The design that they've come up with, I think, is very good in terms of the bump outs. I think that's highly desirable. I think this will actually calm traffic in that area. I've gone through that intersection quite a few times. And one of the things I really notice is people play a kind of car roulette trying to get out from the side streets. The traffic can be relentless coming on Ashford, and cars are trying to grab that space to get out. So I mean, I really would put 4 stop signs here. The times that you're going to come along and look at it as like I'm stopping for nothing, you know, it really isn't that much of a hassle if there's no one in the crosswalk and there's no car trying to merge. If there is someone in the crosswalk and a car trying to merge, having the stop sign just makes it safe. I still think it was a real mistake to put the traffic lights in. Traffic lights to me mean when I'm driving along and I see it's green a half block ahead, I speed up because I don't want to miss the green. If I'm at a stop sign, I stop. Somebody wanting to cross, it's safe. It slows things down. I think it would just make this much calmer. And at that point, you can have all 4 crosswalks, which really does make a big difference. I've seen people crossing, running across the street there, which is just not really great when they're trying to handle kids. Being able to park on both sides of Ashford and use the crosswalk would just make it safe for everyone.
Okay. You guys, are we ready to move forward on this? You want to think about it? We don't have to make a decision today, but how does everybody feel about it? What?
Draw it up. Draw up the plans.
I think we should move forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
what do you think? Larry, what do you think, wherever you are?
I guess I'm behind the intersection here. Other people are much closer to this than I. I agree that we should do something to calm this traffic, and this seems like a very reasonable plan as proposed. The only thing I would maybe ask is whether it would make sense for Russ or someone to be there when the nursery school is coming and going, so that we can have an observation of exactly how much risk is being taken going across there.
Yeah.
9, 12, and 3.
Yeah, so
I mean, like the thing with the bump out, the only thing that would concern me is having a bump out. And if we do something that's beautiful, whatever, like beautification there, people are going to want to cross from there more, or like that might make more people cross from there since it's shorter now. And then we wouldn't have a crosswalk. So that's my only concern.
Donna, what do you think?
The traffic committee has been looking at this for years, practically since the time I started on it a number of years ago. It's long overdue. That's a horrific crossing. We have got to have something there. It's just way too dangerous right now. This particular plan, looks good. It seems to take care of all the issues. Again, I was thinking maybe a stoplight, and actually, but the traffic light. But as they said, it would back things up ridiculously. If we were thinking of, would we be better off with, or maybe we can't afford it, a flashing red light stop sign rather than stop signs on each corner, or will the stop signs on each corner do the same thing, a lot cheaper, a lot less expensive?
So I'm going to share my screen one more time to show you what the rapid flashing beacon is. Now,
Oh, no, I'm not talking about
Oh.
the rapid, I know what that
Okay.
is.
No, I'm sorry.
I helped put the one in on Broadway. I'm talking about a
I
red
misspoke.
light, a stoplight. The
I misspoke.
flashing
I'm
red,
sorry.
The flashing
Here.
red.
So
But they used,
thi-
instead of the stop signs, they used the flashing red,
So
red light.
this is a
That may
hawk.
be too expensive.
This is the hawk beacon. It's obviously, this looks like it's in California. I just did a really fast Google. The hawk beacon is 2 reds and a yellow. The colors don't come up unless someone is in the crosswalk. But it looks like a more standard traffic signal, but it's only activated with a push button when someone is crossing the street. But it's more costly. I could see this installation is probably $80,000 on its own without any of the, without any of the concrete, work, you know.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons that we steered away from this. You know, we're trying to engineer, we're doing the right thing for the pedestrians that, you know, and everything else, but we're also trying to design into a budget. So
That's fine. Yeah, but I'm all for doing something here. Absolutely.
I think generally we were all in favor of the concept that you showed us. So if you want to move forward with that, but I do think maybe it would be a good idea if you do go on a day when Christian preschool isn't operating, and you could just, just before you make the final plan to us.
Yep,
just take a look at
100%.
that. Okay, and then if you could present, but I do think your concept, the majority of the work of the board is fine with it, so you can move forward with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is the RFP for energy performance contractor. I know we've had a presentation done by someone from Honeywell. And this is a follow-up to that. Richard, do you want to just take us a little further on it?
Sure. So the idea of the Honeywell review and the analysis was to see if they could identify sufficient potential energy savings and work that could be done here that would improve your energy picture and utilization. And then from that, if there was looked like there was sufficient potential, the next step would be to put out a request for proposal for an energy performance contractor. So this basically, under state law, there are certain entities that are designated energy performance contractor. They have to have a certain track record. They have to have a certain ability and a recognized performance standard to do such work. And so it's similar to any other bid that you put out there. You put it out there, you see what kind of return you get. And then once you've selected the contractor that you want to work with, if you decide to go forward, they'll do a more intense review of the energy potentials, and they'll look more closely at your projects. And based on that, they'll come back with an analysis, and they basically give you a laundry list, if you will, of things that you can pick and choose from. And you create your own menu in terms of the work that you want to have performed, much of which hopefully will be paid for from energy savings. And if you choose some other projects that are less of a payback, such as windows, you may end up paying for some of the work yourself. But there's plenty of work and opportunity that can be done. So I encourage you to consider moving forward with the next step.
Okay, I think after the last presentation, there was a sense that we wanted to move forward with this. So is there a motion for a resolution authorizing an RFO for energy performance contracting services? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? That passes unanimously.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm up next, but I would actually defer to item 5 and 6 because we've had the officers here.
What a nice person you
Most
are.
of
See
the
that?
evening,
I was thinking of moving them up, but
And they will not sit down.
I would like to yield to the gentleman standing.
They didn't even sit down.
At attention. Well, my description's a little technical and
We just wanted to wear us down so we get a guarantee gas because we're too tired.
Thank you very much, everybody. Mayor, would you like me to actually read the memo?
No, we've all seen the memo, we've all read it. So you need this equipment because the other one is old and this new one will be able to sync with the car radio, right?
So yes, in a nutshell, this particular purchase capital will upgrade our vehicle radios, our portables that we carry on our belts. And, it's an upgrade. Whether we needed a new radio system itself, this purchase is something that I'm here to ask for. Our portables are long overdue to be replaced. Motorola will not service them, so if my radio went down, we have to send it back to say Boostown and then kind of find parts to kind of put it back together again. Same thing with our in-car radios. They have also reached end of life. So as we kind of transition, this particular purchase, when we upgrade our infrastructure, which is also done, it will be out of the system. So all of these purchases are on state contract. ESS, which is our vendor on file, labor to do the installs is not purchased.
And the total cost to purchase and install the portables, the radio charges, the space batteries. And
0.76 cents. There is Motorola is offering a discount on trade-in for old equipment that it's set to expire at the end of the month. So with your permission, make that purchase to the advantage of.
Let's talk to the money man, Jeff. What does the money man have to say?
Obviously, these need to be replaced. ARPA funds, which we have received, I think could be used for this. They want to use that for first responders, communications, etc. We have that cash in place at this point.
Okay. And Laura Lee, you think we could use that money for this? For the record, please answer yes or no.
Yes, I'm nodding, sorry. Yes, you can't read my lips because I have my mask on.
Okay, having heard that, is there a motion to authorize the purchase of the police radio equipment? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor?
Done.
That's unanimous, so it's done.
Mr. Mayor, would need a budget amendment also to be able to pay that.
Okay.
I have that here if you'd like
Oh,
that.
Did you give me that?
Sure. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I have it here.
Okay.
It's official.
So I have to add this to the agenda or just?
Well, I think it's a companion to the resolution you just passed, so I would assume that it can be done, simultaneously.
So it's increased the A 3120.200 police equipment code and increase the A 4089 other federal revenue.
Okay, is there a motion as Jeff outlined? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Maybe you can clarify
Who
that.
needs this?
You can clarify that with Liz.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
yeah,
Liz.
she'll need to number that resolution, so just make sure she has the post-it.
Anything else, Chief?
Well, the police department will be high tech.
The next, I just want to introduce you as partners. Yes. We've been with the department for quite a while, and as we continue ever transitioning mission, so it's a wonderful job, services, that's up to speed with some of the programs that we do. So wonderful opportunity for Officer Betts to kind of explain the next recurring IMA that we have been working with. So Officer Betts.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm wondering,
so long as I was over there.
And yes,
I
all
thought you were
the,
the radio guy.
yes.
I'm not.
Oh, you're Mrs. Beth's son.
What was that?
I said you're Mrs. Beth's son. That's.
I am. I hope that's a good thing.
Community nursery.
And if not, then don't tell me. So what I'm here to discuss is, as the chief said, it's been an ongoing IMA. And so I'm just gonna read, it's only a couple sentences, not that long. And I'm not gonna be asking for $160,000. We're actually gonna be receiving money. So it's a reimbursement from the county of Westchester to the village of Dobbsbury. And so basically we would be reimbursed in the amount of $2,285. And this is going to be in order to support our positive use development program. And the objectives of this program are to identify at-risk youths, refer them to proper services, educate youths and parents about laws and potential consequences, and to provide appropriate alternatives in the form of activities and services. And that's basically it in a nutshell. But in layman's terms, anything that is billable by the village for anything involving youth services, whether it's education of parents, intervening with children, and simple things, you know, like just making sure crosswalks are being covered and how to approach all that kind of stuff. We just keep reimbursed.
And we do this every year.
Yeah, we do this every year. We actually, I think, at a meeting, board meeting a few months ago, this same IMA was approved. But because of COVID, we were not able to you know, do as many, really not many at all, if any, youth service programs, because not many people probably want to Zoom with myself. But now we're back in person, I believe, and we're planning a lot more events, and so we'll actually be able to be reimbursed rather than not have anything to be reimbursed for.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you guys.
You
Thank you.
too. Let's move on this.
You know what?
So
I thought they were here for number 7 too. No?
Oh, you want to talk about the holiday hustle?
well, then
Holiday hustle, so I.
well, let's just vote on this one.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just vote.
I thought we were done.
So therefore, is there a motion to authorize the interim village administrator to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the county of Westchester to fund the Positive Youth Development Program? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Great. I know, are you here for the Youth Service Council? I don't know if you guys are.
So I believe Sergeant Canty is actually.
Okay.
That's what I was told.
You just need to.
Okay.
I'm not prepared.
Let me tell you, you can't mess this one up, but okay, we'll let you go. Thanks. Thank you. All right, Laura Lee, do you want to go now?
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I've drafted a proposed local law which addresses comprehensively the ability of the village to seek candidates for qualified appointments to public officers position. And this will comprehensively include all appointments in the public office to the public officer's position. And you can see it exempts elected because elected have to be from among the village residents. And also it exempts, it takes out the local commissions, committees, boards, approval authorities. So what this does, instead of picking away at it position by position by position by position, which is how you've handled it in the past, it came to our attention that one of the villages in the state had actually taken this action, providing the comprehensive ability. And what it does is it permits you to use your home rule powers to supersede the public officers law and the village law, which requires your public officers to be appointed from only village residents. So this says that you can choose candidates from among the entire state, and you can also choose from any county that is adjacent to Westchester County. So it doesn't mean that you are required to hire somebody from it. It just means that the pool of candidates from which you can choose will be expanded. And this goes for across the board, all your public officers.
Right, because it's been difficult. We've been limiting ourselves to the applicant pool, but just by virtue of the fact they have to live either in the village or in Westchester County, this would expand that.
Right, and you only had 2 positions in the current code, which were qualified and you could get from anywhere in the county, but because this village out on Long Island has actually taken this action, it converts something that's considered by New York State to be a general law, which you can't supersede, into specifically a special law, which you can. So by piggybacking on their efforts and the fact that this is already in the state statute, you can exercise your home rule powers. It's a little bit of a technicality, but this just allows you to expand it instead of on a position by position by position by position basis. It allows you to expand it so you can just draw from a larger pool of candidates.
Okay, so we're going to put this on for a public hearing. The one that I have says this is going to be on Tuesday, November 11th.
I
which
know,
is wrong,
I'm
right?
sorry, that was
So-
my
So
mistake.
we're doing November 2nd, right?
No, the 9th,
Ninth.
yeah. Sometimes I draft these late at night and I'm a bit cross-eyed. Yes, so it'll be on for a public hearing at your next, yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to set a public hearing on this local law which amends the residency requirements for appointed public officials? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Passes unanimously. So this is going to be on for a public hearing on Tuesday, November 9th at 6:30. Thank you. Is Justin around? Do we have him zooming in? If not, we could do it. We have him? If not, we could do it.
Justin, can you hear us?
Yes, I could hear you. Can you
All right,
hear me?
Justin, you're on.
So yeah, we're just putting it up again. We're asking permission for December 12th, 2021 for the Dobbs Ferry Youth Service Council for our holiday hustle. This will be our 9th year. I know, as you know, Mayor, you were our village trustee. When we started this 9 years ago, we started off with 90 something participants. We had it virtually last year. We did like over 300 people virtually, but we're trying to get it back in person this year. All the proceeds benefit our holiday gift drive for the Youth Service Council and for the individuals throughout the village. So we're just trying to get that back on December 12th. People are eager to run in the event, and we're trying to get that back on so we could host it again this year.
Thank you, Justin. It's been 9 years. I can't believe that, but it's a great cause. So I think we're all in favor of it. It also brings people downtown when usually people won't be downtown. So it's a great cause. So is there a motion to authorize the Dobbs Ferry Youth Services Council to host the 9th annual holiday hustle on December 12th, 2021? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? That passes unanimously.
I note, Mayor, that I've been training and I think Mr. Patino participates with his motorcycle, so it's on you to find out how you're gonna participate this year. You're gonna run or? I'm just challenging you.
Publicly.
Well, right, I've seen,
You gonna run?
no.
Well, I would just like to say to Officer Camke, I'd like to participate again, but if you would kindly loan me Santa Claus and not Mrs. Claus costume this year, I would appreciate it. Thanks.
You have to do it on my behalf because I can't do it, Mayor.
I might run it. I've never run before. I want
It
to
is
do it.
super fun. I mean, the guys do such a great job and it is super fun, but I can't run because of my injury. So you guys have to join in and
I've never been a
have some
runner until
fun.
now.
I remember you morning more, so yeah.
I know. And you get to dress up, which,
Very fun.
it's
Love
very
dressing
fun.
up.
I have a lighted hat and a skirt.
I will
I'm gonna
dress
dress up
up
like a
and way at the
non-trustee.
finish line for you guys.
Now you've inspired me. Yeah, I'll walk it. Action item number 8 is to consider a resolution authorizing emergency expenditure for sanitary sewer repair. Richard, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we've spoken quite a bit about some of the infrastructure issues and some of the stormwater issues in the village. We've been trying to look at these very closely with our engineer. And this one is a sewer issue that needed to be remediated at Hudson Terrace. We engaged the County of Westchester to make sure that we were operating according to protocol. Ultimately, we were able to go in there, we were able to identify a leak and install, sleeve the pipe to a certain length and install a manhole on Palisade. So hopefully, if this issue ever comes up again, we'll be able to, negotiate a prompt solution. So very thankful to the engineer, first of all, to the board, of course, for the support, and also to the engineers and to the DPW and our building department for a joint mutual effort.
I know this was an emergency, and I know we involve a lot of houses, so we had little choice to get this thing done as quickly as possible. So I want to commend you, Richard, for keeping focused on it, and everybody else who was involved with this. So is there a motion to authorize the emergency expenditure in the amount of $8,457.50 to Tom Bucci Excavating for the sanitary sewer repair? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 9.
Right, so again, a request for an emergency appropriation. As a result of the residue of Hurricane Ida, we saw quite a bit of activity in the community with respect to stormwater and the impacts of water on many different areas. Again, we're looking at a long-range study with our engineer. We hope to be able to look at the entire situation across the community. But in the interim, this was an opportunity to enhance some of the stormwater capabilities in this particular neighborhood, Pietro and the Maple area. It's an interim solution. It's basically the installation of several catch basins. The work has already, I think it's it's taken place in part. So we're very thankful that it was done in a timely emergency basis. So hopefully we were able to help a little bit in today's storm as well. So again, we have our contractor. The work is partially completed, and the estimated total amount of this phase would be not to exceed $15,000.
Right, so I just want to say, I mean, many people from our village staff, some of the trustees, we've gone to Pietro Place, we've seen the devastation that was caused by the storm. This has been a problem that's not new. It's been happening for many, many decades. We've decided that it's really a difficult situation for many of the residents, so we've taken the first step. I don't know how much more we can do, but we will look at going forward. But certainly we wanted to alleviate some of the problems that these residents were facing. So we've deemed these emergency repairs to be necessary. So is there a motion to authorize the emergency repair in the amount not to exceed $15,000 to replace and repair on an emergency basis stormwater facilities in the Pietro Maple area, payable to Tom Bucci Excavating? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Again, I want to thank everybody from the village who's taken a step on that. I think I also now have action item number 10 is to revise a resolution that we passed on September 28th, 2021, which is a resolution authorizing the interim village administrator to execute agreements as necessary for the licensing and use of the community recycling app Recycle Right in collaboration with Sustainable Westchester. I just want to read a part of it. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the interim village administrator to execute any and all agreements and documents necessary for the licensing and use of the community recycling app Recycle Right, which is a component of a program entitled Zero Waste Westchester. Is there a motion to pass this resolution? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? That passes unanimously.
We just needed to revise to include Sustainable Westchester because there's a grant program which reduces the price. So Sustainable Westchester is making that grant application before your next meeting. So Jen and I worked on it this afternoon, and thank you for doing that.
Action item number 11. Is a resolution of the Village of Dobbs Ferry to accept the resignation of Frank Magnieri as Deputy Treasurer. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Frank Magnieri as Deputy Treasurer with the Village of Dobbs Ferry effective October 28th, 2021. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. I'm sorry to see you go, Frank. Good luck wherever you are going next. And I think I'm done.
Audit claims.
Audits,
How did I forget that?
the original number
Number two,
eight.
number eight, so it's
Thank you for supporting me. It is confusing, right?
two, number nine.
Resolution, so this is now, we're up to number 11. Well, resolution approving the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer. Is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second trustee Nell. All in favor? That passes unanimously. The minutes of October 12th. Is there a motion to accept those minutes? Trustee Patino, second trustee Sullivan, all in
Nope, I
favor?
wasn't here. I don't vote.
You don't have to be here to
I
actually.
know, but I don't like voting on them in general. I'm certainly not gonna vote on them
You
when I'm
don't
not
even have to
there.
vote on them, right?
Exactly.
Trustee Garazi, all in favor, passes 6 with the one app, one.
That was a 5, wasn't it?
You vote?
No, I did, but wasn't that a meeting that we only had 5 people?
Yeah, Donna and I weren't there.
Donna wasn't there.
Okay, that passes 5-0 to 2. Two abstentions. I thought we would be out of here so much earlier.
So
than
did
we
I.
are.
No, I'm wondering what happened.
My kids are home alone.
Oh, and let's have the whole Dobbs Ferry now. Zoning Board Appeals. Trustee liaison report. Zoning Board, ZBA,
Nothing, nothing.
Service Council.
So we just announced the holiday hustle on December 12th. The Youth Services Council is working on a new PSA dash kind of announcement to educate the community about exactly what the Youth Services Council does. We are reviewing a great candidate for our chair. Thank you, Christy. And we still have the coordinator position open, right, Jeff?
Correct.
So that's what is happening there.
Parks and Rec.
So they have the Halloween stuff this week and they had window painting on Sunday, so you should walk around Cedar. There's some really cool window paintings. Friday from 7 to 9 at Memorial Park, they're gonna have Field of Screams again. Saturday at 6, they're gonna have a movie, The Addams Family. I don't say where it is, but I think it's at Memorial. Huh?
When they gonna, wasn't it waterfront?
I think
Is
it
it waterfront?
I think it is outside.
Remember,
Is it
I don't know if
waterfront,
it's been
Jen?
changed. But
Yeah, it's at Waterfront. And then Sunday at 11:30, they have a pet parade at the Waterfront flagpole. And then from 12 to 4, it's a new event, like I said, it's to Halloween Bash, where they're gonna have activities with inflatables, a petting zoo, mini golf, food trucks, and live music. From 12 to 4 at the Waterfront, followed by 4 to 6, our traditional trick or treating on Main and Cedar. So we missed last year, but we are certainly making up for Halloween and Dobbs Ferry this year.
Conservation Advisory Board.
It's me. Unfortunately missed the last meeting. And I will have to fill everyone in next time.
Tree Commission.
Too many items on that agenda.
That's also me. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on. There's a lot of tree applications. I think that the public at large is a bit unsure about what the process is. We tend to get a lot of, just as a board, we get a lot of emails about this, which really we shouldn't. I believe that a revision to the tree code would tremendously help. I know we're all working on this, but if we push that ahead in the agenda, there'll be a clear route for those applications and clear direction for what what those will cost, whether in form of replacement or fines, et cetera. So hopefully that will be on in November.
AHRB.
There's a new presentation for, I can't remember the number of Palisade Street. 156 Palisade Street. They gave comments and asked for some changes, but I recommend everybody take a look. It's not going to come to us because it's not in our purview, but it's interesting nevertheless because it's around the corner from our purview. So take a look, see.
Ad hoc committees, I think, well, you had one.
Yes, we had the Human Rights and Diversity Committee had a meeting on the 18th of this month. And as many of you heard on the last meeting, we were supposed to have a presentation from NYU. The MTT is going through some changes. Elisa, thank you so much for that reminder email that you sent. So we are trying to reschedule the presentation in order for us to decide on the human rights and diversity training for the village.
And I just want to thank everyone for the Road to Freedom Walk. That was a great event. It was a great tradition that we have going on in the village. It's good to see everybody there. I want to thank the Borkhouse and the Dobbs Ferry Historical Society for the work that they did for that. Anybody else have any other announcements? Okay. Having no other further business, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Trustee Solomon, trustee Nazari, seconds, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Meeting's adjourned.
Right.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.